my name is Jake, and I'm going to be discussing how the Spongebob episode Band Geeks is a parody on how leaders only use pathos instead of logos when motivating others. In the Spongebob Squarepants episode Band Geeks, SpongeBob and his friends are recruited by Squidward to play in a marching band at the halftime show of a football game. After practicing for a few days, Squidward gets frustrated and decides to quit, and so SpongeBob gives a motivational speech to his friends to convince them to practice more so that Squidward will feel good. First, let's look at what a parody actually is. The Oxford Dictionary defines parody as imitation of the style of a particular writer, artist, or genre with deliberate exaggeration for comic effect. Now that we know the definition, we can begin to analyze the words of the speech and prove that it is in fact a parody. So SpongeBob begins his speech in typical melodramatic emotional fashion by asking his colleagues, "What kind of monsters are we?" Here he's using the emotion of shame to convince his colleagues to help Squidward. Right after that, SpongeBob says, "The poor creature came to us in his hour of need, and we failed him," again tugging at the heartstrings and pity of his colleagues to convince them to help Squidward out again. Then the comedic aspect of the speech comes when SpongeBob says, "Squidward's always been there for us when it was convenient for him." Obviously, being convenient for him diminishes the whole point of being nice and is there so the writers can ensure that it's a joke and they're not being serious. So finally, SpongeBob asks a woman who rescued her son when he was trapped in a fire. She says it was a fireman. Then he asks someone else who revived him when his heart gave out, and he said it was some guy in an ambulance. SpongeBob explains that if they simply pretend that Squidward were a fireman or a guy in an ambulance, they can return the good deed by forming the marching band. Invalid arguments like this are used by politicians and regular people all the time, and they get away with it because they make them emotional, and people are influenced by emotion very heavily. So, because we know the definition of parody now, we've seen that SpongeBob's speech fits this definition, and we've related it to a real-life genre, we can finally deduce that this speech is indeed a parody of people using invalid but emotional arguments to convince people to do whatever they want. Thank you for watching.